All right, guys, I'll get rocking and rolling. So, give you all just a little background on what we're going to do today and the program and my ideas with it. It's very, very simple. I want to add as much value in relevant areas to your careers, whether you work with me or don't work with me. It's going to be some things that I have learned throughout my career, some things I've seen work, and other things that, I'm seeing in the industry. So, this is a very interactive training program. Today, I'm going to cover high-level theory, a roadmap of the overall blueprint that we have set up for my team and what I have used to build a successful business in 3 different markets throughout my career. So the beginning is going to be kind of getting to know me, high-level theory, and then the second part is going to be going over the blueprints. Today is going to be more of a roadmap of what we want to do, less of action items. So it's going to be a lot of high-level stuff today. So don't think like, well, I didn't learn anything today. That's not necessarily the point today, is to take things that you're going to go learn. There will be a lot you can take away, but today is more about just giving you the theories, giving you a little bit of background, and then next week we're going to jump into specific action items. So that being said, every week we're going to focus on 3 parts, really. We're going to focus on theories. Like, let's say next week our topic is building an audience. We're going to focus on theories about how you build an audience and how you get more followers. Then the second part, we're going to focus on actual action items you can do this week to get more of an audience. And then third, we're going to either take questions or we're going to have another loan officer, another expert join in and give us real world examples of how they built their audience. So we want to mix all these things in. And along the way, we're going to take feedback. Whatever you guys want to learn about, I literally have probably 20 classes scheduled out, built out all the way through to cover this entire blueprint. But if there's things you guys are struggling with, we can always rearrange, jump in. I want to hit the topics that are important to you. For example, some of you guys may be branch managers and y'all want to cover, how to grow your branch, how to recruit. And that's not necessarily on my list right now. But if that's something enough people ask me about, we'll do a week on recruiting. We'll do a week on different strategies I've seen working and so forth and that. But let's start with a little bit of preaching before we get to teaching. I think it's important for everybody here to get a little bit of background about me and understand why I teach the way I do, why I am the way I am, why my business is set up the way I am. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen with you guys and just go over a little presentation. Like I said, today is going to be probably the only day we even have a PDF, we even have a presentation. Everything else is going to be really, really, coachable items. But today, I want to give you an overview of what we're going to do. So here's what we created as our blueprint for a successful loan officer. I have it pretty much outlined here. Hopefully you guys can see this, but it comes from this. All right, guys, this is my NMLS record. One of the least things I'm proud of in my entire career. I know they say like a lot of coaches, a lot of managers, well, they do it because they can't do it themselves. They teach because they can't produce. And unfortunately, you can go all the way back to here. I have worked at so many different companies. I've seen so many different things along the way. It's really given me the experience that I need, unfortunately, to coach. Some of these bad, I mean, you can go through this list, and some of these companies I worked at for 3 months, man, but I've taken a little bit from each one of these companies along the way, and that's how we put this together. So if you look at my NMLS record, this is who it says I am. Now I'm the owner of a fast-growing, small little mortgage company here in New Orleans. Before that, I was the CEO of a company. I was the national sales manager of a multi-billion-dollar company. I was everything from a call center rep in the subprime days. I mean, I've done it all, seen it all, failed, got up, moved, rebuilt along the way. Now, for my first 10 years in the business, I was really struggling, really struggling. I got into the business at 23 and I was having some hard times. This is what my last boss said about me. Right before I went to Nations Lending, which in 2015, which is where my career really took off, and I built a successful branch, a successful business, then I worked my way up to executive. The last place I worked before that, this is what my boss said when I quit. Swear to God, he literally, the last line on here stuck with me forever. He literally said, "Do us all a favor and stick to cooking mud bugs and leave this industry to professionals." As I've been in the business for 20 years, but as recently as 8 years ago, this is what my boss told me whenever I left the company. I mean, besides it being borderline, I guess almost racist because I'm Cajun, just attacking me. He made up lies about me and he treated me terribly on the way out. And I said that day that I was never going to treat my employees this way. I was never, ever going to act like this. I have a saying about the mortgage industry and just in general, I'm sure a lot of people's parents used to tell them the true measure of a man is what they do when nobody's watching. In my opinion, the true measure of the mortgage industry is how people treat you when you're no longer making them money. It's funny how everyone kisses your ass and does all these things for you when you work under them or you're giving them an override. But as soon as you leave to better yourself or find a better fit, all of a sudden you should stick to cooking mud bugs. And that's one of the sad things with the mortgage industry. And that's why we're offering this training, because I really feel like there's such poor leadership in the mortgage industry. This is something that we can all, work on changing together, for sure. So I don't know if there's any way for you guys to give any feedback right now. I don't know if I have it turned on, so I don't want to be missing your guys' questions. If there are questions and I'm missing them, I apologize in advance. But that being said, I went back and pulled some old pictures for you guys just to give you a little bit of background. This is who my MySpace says I am. I was prom king. I was on the debate team. I grew up in the country on a gravel road. I was a complete country boy, far from what I am now. And, things got out of hand for me. So, I share my story with people because I think it's important. I had to go to the military. I lost my scholarship completely from college. I would not say my story is a rags to riches story. Oh, Jonathan's texting me. Maybe he's saying something. Chat disabled. Oh, okay. Sorry, guys. Chat's disabled. I'll turn it on for the next class, and we can interact. My bad. But that being said, back to what I was talking about. I wasn't a rags to riches, but I've been rock bottom before. In my college days, I got extremely addicted to drugs. And I got kicked out of school. I was on a full scholarship academic. I was mom and dad's golden boy. Like I said, I was prom king, debates team, went to college, joined the fraternity, and pretty much lost everything. Had to join the military. And thankfully, when I got out of the military, I was bartending and I was 23. And somebody who's actually hopefully on this call right now, he registered, offered me a job in the mortgage industry. And my career in the mortgage industry didn't start strong either. It was up and down as well. And it took a lot of self-reflecting. It took a lot of growing up for me to figure out what I figured out at this point. But now the funny thing is, if you look at my Facebook now, you won't see any of those struggles. So this is who my Facebook now says I am. I have a family, kids. I've won numerous awards. I've worked my way up in companies. I've been featured on even in downtown Houston for the humanitarian work I did after the hurricanes. They put a little monument up in our honor. Not something that I wanted, but I have a full team. I have 60 pretty much employees now that are working for us in 10 different states. And, I've come a long way from the bottom, and I've fallen multiple times. So whenever I teach, a lot of my teachings, draw off of my experiences, not only in the mortgage industry, but in life. And a lot of you guys, if you're struggling, you're not happy, I see all angles of that. So a lot of the things that I'm going to share with you guys are super transparent. And, I feel like that's the most effective way to coach. I started figuring out everything after all these struggles you see I went through. It was always just a check. I would make these vision boards, and everything really started to come into focus for me whenever I figured out why I was doing what I was doing. And I shared this story here in this picture here because it's about Mike Tyson, and it says, "What's your why?" But one of my favorite speakers, Eric Thomas, he always tells this story about Buster Douglas beating Mike Tyson. And there was a point in the round before Buster Douglas won where Mike Tyson had knocked him down. And Mike Tyson at the time was 42-0, and no one that he had knocked down had ever gotten back up. And Buster Douglas got back up, and he was saved by the bell. He went to the corner, and then he came out the next round, and he knocked out Mike Tyson. And while they were interviewing Buster Douglas after the fight, he told the announcer that the reason that he got up off the mat was because his mom, who had passed away 3 days before the fight, had told everybody at the beauty salon that he was going to beat Mike Tyson, and he wasn't going to let his mom die a liar. And I thought that always was really prolific. If Mike Tyson can punch you in the face and you can get up because you have a reason why, that's kind of almost like, in me, a little bit of a metaphor for the mortgage industry. There's some days that I know all of us feel like Mike Tyson is punching us in the face. I mean, especially over the last year. But we have to know why we're doing what we're doing, or it's going to be really, really hard to get up. I am a strong believer that the mortgage industry, if you're going to sit here and make 60K and you're just going to do it to live an average life, You'd be better off going work at Chick-fil-A as a manager. That would be a more fun life. This job is brutal. It has to be done correctly, and you have to figure out how to maximize it. So the reason you're doing this job is being fulfilled. I mean, other than that, there's much better jobs to have. So that really started clicking for me at about 31 years old. I wanted to be a dad more than anything. And my wife had a miscarriage, and it was tough for about 2 weeks. And then one night we were laying in bed, and she tells me, she says, it's probably a good thing that we didn't have this kid. And I looked at her and I was like, why? And she literally told me straight face that because my job was not stable, I switched companies 3 times in the last 7 months. Y'all remember that NMLS record I showed you? She basically used that against me and told me that she wasn't ready to bring a kid into this world with somebody who was in an industry or in a job that unstable. And that crushed me. So from that day on, I decided that I was going to use the mortgage industry as my platform to raise a family, to build a family. And I had to work harder and prove to her that I was able to establish some consistency in this industry that allowed me to do the things I wanted to do. And my why became no longer a Mercedes-Benz, no longer a boat, no longer a high-rise condo, but I was working to build a family. And once I had that why, I felt like Buster Douglas. I felt like I was the one knocking out Mike Tyson. And ever since then, my career and the trajectory, the last 12 years, I haven't made, I've made a significant amount of money every single year since then, and it's amazing. So if you don't know why you're doing this, if you just think this is an easy job, fun money, it's going to be tough, man. This industry will knock you out every day. So that's where I would start. This ain't real coaching or real training, but if you don't know why you're doing this, if you just think it's a fun job, it's going to be tough on you guys. So let's figure out why we're doing those things. And once we do those things, it's important that we start figuring out our time, right? Because everything that we do in our training is going to be to maximize our time. If I gave you $8,000 or $86,400 today, and I said, every dollar you don't spend, you have to give back to me tomorrow. Come back to me at the same time, the same place, and bring me whatever you didn't spend of this $86,400. How much money are you going to bring back to me tomorrow? I guarantee you bring me back nothing. Well, we have 86,400 seconds in a day, and yet we waste infinite amounts of time. We say time is money. We don't waste money, yet we waste time. It makes no sense. It's our number one asset in life. It's our number one asset in business. And it's our number one asset in the mortgage industry. The guys that sit in my office and aren't successful, I can watch their day. They get here at 10 o'clock after going to the gym and playing around. They stand by the water cooler and chat. They leave for lunch at 11. They come back at 2 and leave for the day at 3. They maybe worked an hour and a half. You're not going to win in this industry working an hour and a half. There's a way to have a work-life balance. We have one life, and that's what we focus on. Let's make our life the best. This job takes over your life. There is a way to have a good life, a good home life. The reason you're working, spend time with your kids, spend time with your family, whatever you're doing this for, you don't have to separate it, right? But you have to maximize your time. And that's something that has to be done on a daily basis. One of my slogans that I teach my guys is reflect and correct. Every single day, you should look at your day, and we should look back. We're going to do this week to week. We're going to give assignments every single week. We're going to look back at the week. What did we do to gain traction? And then reflect and correct. If we get a little bit better every day, every week, if we use these motivations that we have, whether it be our family or whatever our why is, to motivate us to lay in bed at night and reflect, how can we be a little bit better every day? If I can add to that, that's my goal here, okay? So here's the 5 rules that I have for anybody who's in here, and then we're going to get into the blueprint. My 5 rules for being the world's greatest LO is, everybody who's in here, I need you to be yourself. Bet on your strengths, okay? Everything we say isn't going to be for you. There's some things that I cannot do that others can do. I was very, very shy for a long time. I started my mortgage career in Orlando, and I had like a work voice. I didn't want to have my Cajun accent, right? Because every time I would meet people in person, they would look at me strange, like, wait, you're a young white guy? They would talk to me on the phone, and they thought I was somebody else. And I used to get embarrassed by that. My accent, my dialect, the way I talked caused the perception of me that wasn't accurate with who I really was. And not that I was embarrassed of it, I just thought that I had to be somebody. I went and bought a Benz, I went and got a high-rise condo, and I was trying to be somebody I wasn't. And unfortunately, my career never took off. When I moved to Houston, I decided to be the Cajun mortgage guy. That was my brand. Anybody who follows me in here probably knows I was the Cajun mortgage guy. Probably the worst branding you could have. Nobody ever says, oh, Cajun mortgage guy, I want a Cajun to handle my finances. But because of who I was, that brand stuck. And people were able to, I guess, almost identify with it. They found some common ground with it, and it made my brand real and believable. So no matter what we do, no matter what we say, if that's not who you are, you stick to who you are. That's number one. Number two, we're going to reflect and correct every day. Nothing we're going to try is going to work every time. None of our theories may go over on your head. Hell, maybe your market, this doesn't work. But everything we try, we learn from. There's no mistakes. You know, there's no failures. There's only lessons to be learned. And we're gonna keep working, keep getting better every day. Number three, we're not going to compare ourselves to others. This is never going to be a coaching group where I'm going to ask you your numbers, you know, where we're going to brag about our numbers. If you notice, I told you all the different markets I worked in, and the truth be told, every single market I've been in, I've gotten my team up to over 100 million. That's not important, right? How much business you do is not going to be relevant to how we coach you. This is so important in our industry because I think the majority of people get down on themselves because they see other companies doing certain things, other LOs doing certain things, and you need to learn from those things, not compare yourself to those things. Number four, we're going to take action. Action works. That's why every single class is going to focus on theory and action. We're not just going to talk high level. Oh, these things are great. We're going to talk, what are we going to do this week to implement these parts of our plan? And number five, we got to be consistent, right? This phone call is step one. This webinar, step one. Every week we have to be here. Because this isn't paid coaching, because I'm not your personal coach, and I'm not going to call you and harass you and say, hey, you need to be on this call. You need to be on this call. Every week, I'm not going to hound you. I'm not going to follow up on these things, right? We're going to have action items, but it's going to be up to you to take these things and run with them. So those are the 5 rules of being in the group. I'm going to start laying out the blueprint, but keep those in mind, okay? So this is my theories. Not all of these things are absolute facts, but this is how our program is going to focus and teach you to be a better loan officer and build your business. I want you to think about how I see the business and how I simplify it. First and foremost, I see the business as 2 parts, okay? I see the business as getting clients, and I see the business as the client experience. That's the way I look at it. The getting clients is what we call sales, right? You know, the mortgage business is not just sales. You have to do a good job with your clients. I would say it's the equivalent of a brand new restaurant opens up, okay? They have to get people in the door first. That's the getting clients. But if they cook really good food, what do they never have to do again? Get clients, because their food does the work. And believe it or not, the mortgage industry, we always say sales, sales, sales. And most of it is not truly sales. You can spend all your time getting clients in the door repeatedly, but if your cycle of excellence, if your circle, if your clients aren't enjoying the experience, if you're not getting repeat referrals, you're going to wear yourself out getting clients. So we're going to focus on both things, getting people into the door, our restaurant, and cooking really good food, because those 2 things will make you busier than you will ever be for the rest of your life. I promise you. I hired a guy that I thought would never sell. I didn't want to hire him. He was an engineer. I looked at this guy and I was like, there's absolutely no way this guy could ever sell a mortgage. He'll never make relationships. It's not his style. But he was so process oriented. He was so good at mortgages. He's probably the top producer I ever trained from scratch. Within his 5th year, he was doing 80 million a year, and he's probably the worst salesman I've ever seen. So that just goes to show you, you don't have to sell to be good at mortgages. Does it help? Yes. But if you're not good at mortgages, selling does nothing, okay? So that being said, my theory of marketing and sales, which is what we're going to focus on, if you look at the right here, this is how big companies do marketing. Their idea is spread your name everywhere, get a whole bunch of attention. This would be called a sales funnel, right? You create a sales funnel. My coaching is not based on a sales funnel. It's really, really not. We're going to try to build databases. We're going to try to build groups. We're going to try to get a bunch of people to notice us. But we're going to do it from the mindset of the left-hand side here. Every person we meet, we want them to take some sort of action and be some sort of client of ours, okay? And I think that's super important. I tell people all the time, the average mortgage used to be kept around 3 to 5 years. With the 2% out there and the 7% out there now, who knows what the average time is? But let's say every person buys a mortgage every 10 years. Let's just say that. I have 5,000 Facebook friends. 5,000. If every 10th person got a mortgage this year, that means 500 people just on my Facebook got a mortgage this year. You know how many loans I did personally last year? 30 million, 90. So that means I didn't even get 1/5 of my personal Facebook friends' mortgage business. And if you take into account all the people I did that I didn't even know, that just goes to show you how many people who I'm friends with on Facebook actually got a mortgage and did not choose to do business with me. That's kind of sobering, right? I can look at my 30 million last year and be like, man, it was a terrible year. I did 30 million. I live in the worst market in the country. Louisiana is the worst real estate market in the country, number 50 out of 50, and I did 30 million. I should be proud. I shouldn't, because I left at least 5 times that much business on the table because I didn't capture all of the business just from the people I know. So I don't look at big picture, let's get everybody in. How do I make every person I come into contact with every day think whenever they want a mortgage, they need to call Jordan? All of our training is going to focus on you being top of mind and you being the person that people want to do business with, okay? Because guess what? This is the real big kicker for me, and this is when my career changed. When I realized there's only 2 reasons people don't do a mortgage with you. 2, just 2. They don't know what you do because you haven't said it enough. Your Facebook doesn't say you're a loan officer. You don't tell anybody you're a loan officer. It's just that they didn't know. You just started, and that's okay. We can fix that. That's easy, right? That's length of time. That's repetitiveness. That's getting out there. That's just marketing 101. They don't know what you do. Or they don't know what you do as an excuse because they made a choice not to do business with you. And this is the hard one for most of the people I coach, most of the guys on my team, just even me, to swallow. That they literally said, oh, Jordan does mortgages. I don't think I want Jordan to do this one for me. And why did they think that? What goes through their head that makes them say, I'd rather call Rocket Mortgage than let Jordan, my friend from high school, my neighbor, do my loan? And when I started being honest with myself about why people were making decisions not to do business with me, it changed my entire career. So that's number 1, guys. We're going to be honest about why people don't do business with you and why they do business with you. And I was honest about why people didn't do business with me. And I had to remove those negatives from my life. Some people still thought I was a party guy, like from college. Some people still thought I was, arrogant, whatever it may be. He's Cajun, he's out partying, he's not serious, he don't have a family. Whatever negative thing I was giving him. Would they come to a barbecue at my house? Yeah, they would, because I was fun. But would they call me for their mortgage? They wouldn't. And there's a difference between being the fun guy, the funny guy, or the guy people trust for your mortgage, right? And that's what we're going to focus on. How do you become the person that people trust to do their mortgage? If I can do it, all of you guys can do it, okay? What are the 3 reasons that people are going to decide who does their mortgage? There's only 3. You can't give me another reason. There's only 3 reasons people do a mortgage with someone. 3. 1, you're the cheapest. There's some people, it doesn't matter what it is, whether it's toothpaste, cars, clothing, mortgages, they're going with whoever the cheapest is. And look, they don't care if it's a bad experience. People know that the clothes at Walmart aren't as good as the clothes at Macy's, but they still go to Walmart, right? Some people don't care anything whatsoever about quality. They only want the cheapest. That's one reason they'll do business with you. The second reason they'll do business with you is because you're the best. Your real estate agent told them you're the best. You're an expert on VA loans and they're a veteran. They've seen your post. They see what you're doing. They see your closings in their head. Wow, that guy's a good mortgage loan officer. That's who I'm going to use. And then the third reason is because they like you. They like you more than any other loan officer they met, whether it's because you're their neighbor, whether it's because they're your mom. I mean, your mom should be using you for a mortgage. Look, if your mom is not using you for her mortgage, this coaching isn't going to help you. That's just the bottom line. But there are certain people that are going to do business with you because they like you, your friends, your family, your really, really close friends. And that's the 3 reasons. So what we're going to focus on is I can't control your price. That's up to you. Like there's nothing in coaching where I can say, go make yourself the cheapest. But if you really, really want, there's business models out there where you can be the cheapest and get business. Like that's probably the simplest business model in the mortgage industry. You want to work for free, you'll get busy. That's not real coaching. I promise you, you can do that. Everybody can do that. You don't need me to do that. What we're going to focus on mostly here is how do we make ourselves present as an expert, and how do we make people like us? Because mortgages aren't exactly something that people like. Like nobody sits at home and says, let me take out a high interest rate loan from this guy. Let me pay interest to the bank. We're necessary evil. So to be a likable mortgage guy is kind of an art, but making yourself an expert is the most important part of this entire process. So most of our marketing is to make people like us and think of us as an expert. That's the only 3 reasons people will ever do business with you. So when they're making that choice, the choice that we're focusing on, okay, I'm using Jordan because he's the best. I'm using Jordan because he's the best at VA loans. I'm using Jordan because people call him Mr. Save My Loan. Oh, my loan just got denied. Boom. Who am I thinking about? The guy who's been marketing, he's saving loans. I'm giving that guy a chance. Okay. So that's the way we're building our business model. We build our business model through activities. Okay. I have 3, look, as you can see, everything is like 2 ways, 3 ways. I simplified things because the business isn't that difficult, guys. There's 3 activity buckets. Everything is activities. You have to have activities. You cannot just sit in the office and expect people to come to you. There are certain things that you do that attract clients. We call those activities. Activities lead to contacts. Contacts lead to opportunities. For example, let's say we ran out to Walmart right now and we stood in front of Walmart and everybody that came through the door, we said, hello, sir, do you want to buy a house? Hello, sir, do you want to refinance? Is that an activity? It is. It's an obnoxious one, but at a certain point, if 1,000 people walked in, as corny as it may be, someone would say, absolutely, I'm trying to finance right now, and I can't get my guy to call him back. Boom, your activity led to an opportunity. What we focus on here is what activities are we going to do? What real-life actions are we going to take this week and are we going to take with us that are going to give me more contacts and more opportunities? I put those into 3 buckets. And when we discuss these things, we're going to discuss in 3 buckets, okay? Number 1 is your influencer bucket. That's your sphere. So some of our activities are going to be like, how do we maximize our database? How do we get our friends on Facebook to do business with us? That's people we already know, right? Like, how do I get the people I already know to do business with me? And that's probably the most important of this because everything else comes from this. Then the secondary step to that is, how do I meet new people? I call that the hustle bucket, right? That's the politician bucket. That's the get out there, kiss babies, shake hands bucket. Where can I go and put myself that I'm meeting the right relevant people to add to my influence bucket? Because that's basically what you're doing in the hustle bucket activities, is you're trying to meet new people to add to your sphere. And that comes from working open houses, joining organizations. You know, maybe you're in clubs, sponsoring things, just shaking hands and kissing babies. And I'm the absolute worst at that. You know, I'm so at my desk all day, every day, man. There's more opportunities to get out there, but I got some guys on my teams that are pure mortgage politicians, and they're really, really good at it. The third bucket from activities that we're going to talk about is the paid bucket, you know, whether it's buying leads, whatever you may be. And look, that's not my strategy, but it works. So a lot of the activities we're going to talk about are things that work. Doesn't mean it's the activities that I do. And that's why I said it's important to bet on your strengths and important to stay true to who you are. If you are not a lead caller, if you're not a database worker, if you're not a networker that goes with name tags to the Chamber of Commerce and shakes hands, then we're going to come up with other activities that work for you. You do not have to take all of this and run with it. If a little bit of this helps you, then you have to figure out how to implement that piece into your structure, okay? That being said, it's all about building you up. You got to be the best version of yourself, okay? Whether it be your health, whether it be your mental capacity, you cannot excel at this job until you're the best version of yourself. So everything we give you is to build yourself up. Be honest with yourself. What's holding you back? Before we can coach you, I promise you, the number 1 reason you haven't gotten to where you want today, let's say whatever your goal was for 2023, if you did not hit your goal in 2023, I promise you, the number 1 reason was not because of something you're missing. There's nothing I'm going to say that's going to, light bulb goes off and it's like, God dang it, I would have made my goal if Jordan would have told me that 6 months ago. I bet you anything, it's something in your life that's holding you back, something negative that you have to remove. Basically, the rest of us are sprinting and you're running hurdles. Mine was drinking. I was drinking too much. I was taking days off. You know, I had some addiction problems. And once I kicked those habits, my life changed, my income changed, my business changed. Sometimes it's negative people. Sometimes you're surrounded by negative people, whether it's in your branch, whether it's in your company, whether it's in your household, whether it's in your marriage. Sometimes there's negative people holding us back. Be honest with yourself about what is holding you back and what is negative in your life that you are creating that's holding you back. Once you remove that obstacle, that's probably the most powerful piece of coaching you'll ever get. I'll never add anything to your life, but if you can remove the negative from your life, it'll change the game for you, okay? So let's circle back on everything. Here's how the blueprint actually plays out. And this is what we're going to focus on throughout our training. Activities lead to contacts, lead to opportunities, okay? Everything is going to focus on activities, contacts, activities, contacts. Then we're going to focus on how, when you make contacts, how to make yourself likable to those contacts. Very, very simple. What's your value proposition, right? Once you meet these people, why are they going to do business with you? Is it because you're the cheapest? Is it because you're a subject matter expert? Is it because they like you? We just talked about this. Once you're making these contacts, which one of these three things is going to pop into their head and say, I'm doing business with Jordan because he's the best. I'm doing business with Jordan because he's the cheapest. And we're going to build all this out, building block by building block, activity through activity. And you're going to wake up one day and you're going to have a complete business that's going to have the fundamentals and a true business plan orchestrated with every piece of a real business model. It's going to be a beautiful thing as we have it come together. Here's some things we have to consider in doing all of this. Your local demographics, right? I moved to Houston and I was doing about 40 million a year. My first year in Houston, I did 40 million without ever living in Houston because I figured one thing out. I had been out of the military for 7 years. I had never once marketed myself as a VA expert. Never. Don't know why. I was a veteran. I moved to Houston and I went on Wikipedia, whatever you call it, and I looked at the demographics of Houston. And I saw Harris County had the largest population of veterans in the entire country. And I said to myself, 179,000 veterans in this county? I'm a veteran. I can start marketing to them. And that's literally when the light bulb went off. What type of audience do I have? What type of demographics are in my area? Would it be smart to be a VA master in a market with no veterans? Probably not. Would it be smart to be a condo master in Houston? Probably not. There's no condos, right? Would it be smart to be the condo king if I lived in Florida, Miami? Probably right. So demographics are going to matter a lot in what you're offering and in your brand. So we're going to always take a look at that. It's going to be different for every single one of us, okay? Number two is going to be your competition. You need to be doing things your competition is not. Every market is different. The market that I was originally in, Lafayette, everybody in town is a broker. Everybody. There's no banks anymore. There's no nothing, just brokers. There's some other markets where there's just banks, right? So figuring out what your major competition is and putting yourself in a position to take advantage of what your competition is not doing also changes things. This is the things that'll make things different for each one of us, right? And if we got to do calls individually to kind of focus on what your market's doing, that's why not everything works everywhere. You have different demographics, you have different competition, you know, different loan sizes, different credit scores. I'm in the worst state for credit. You know, we have the worst real estate market, the worst credit. I mean, it's just a different market, right? So things that I'm doing will work in other places on some levels, and some levels need to be changed. Number three, always go to the underserved, right? Always go to the underserved. You know, whatever's not being served in your community here in Louisiana, there's mobile homes everywhere. Nobody wants to do mobile homes. Almost everybody I train from the ground up, I make them start by calling mobile home listings. Like, we're going to go help the people nobody's helping first. That's how we're going to get our foot in the door. That's always a great strategy to earn business, okay? And then number four, expanding your reach. That's the third thing we got to do. Okay, I live in a little town of 10,000. I know a guy in Alabama who lives in a town of 8,000 and is probably a top loan officer in all of Alabama. You don't have to live in the market that you're dominating. Is it easier? Yes, it is. But expanding your reach to other markets is key. And that's the fourth thing we'll focus on. How do you win in your local area? How do you expand your reach? How do you do what others aren't doing? And how do you navigate that terrain? All these are going to be considerations when building your audience. The final blueprint comes together like this. We're going to build your brand. We're going to figure out who you are. Figure out why people do business with you. Get to know your audience. We're going to get involved, get active. We're going to work on activities. And it's all going to come together by building relationships. We're going to coach you on the proper ways to do a meeting, the proper ways to build a relationship. All of these things are going to be important throughout. And then last but not least, we're going to leverage every single one of these wins, okay? So just to give you a story how this all comes together. Right after I had my first child, I didn't want to live in Louisiana anymore. I wanted to move to Houston. I went to Houston. I bought a house. I called this, like, this is probably like real estate, I guess, with treason. You know, I'm a mortgage guy. We know we don't call the sign. And I called the sign. Talked to the lady on it. I said, I already found the house I want online. I was like trying to negotiate with her. We're paying cash, blah, blah, blah. Can I get a better deal? She was like, no, we got to do dual agency, all this stuff. So I let the lady represent me. Didn't know the lady. Come to find out, she had listed that house because she lived in the neighborhood. We bought the house. This new agent that I had just let represent me was my neighbor, the only real estate agent I knew in Houston. So of course, what did I do? I leveraged my first relationship. I went to her and I said, listen, hey, Ginger, you were great. You know how I operate. We made that transaction really easy. I'm new to the neighborhood. You know who I am. Anything you can do to help me out and introduce me to a couple of your friends at the brokerage. And she did. I went to lunch with 3 of her friends. 3 of her friends gave me a shot. Next thing you know, I was doing loans for 4 people in that brokerage because of one house I bought. So then, after I got a reputation at the brokerage, I asked them if they could introduce me to their broker. Their broker then let me teach a class at their office. I taught a class at the office, and next thing you know, I had pretty much taken over the entire office. They asked me to be the preferred lender. I had probably been in Houston for 3 months, a guy nobody knew who spoke like a Cajun from Louisiana and was already the preferred lender in an office of 150 agents. That's how I did 40 million my first year, and it was the best year I ever had up to that point in my career because I leveraged the one person that I knew. Too many times we want to celebrate. We want to post our closings. And look, I'm not going to tell you not to be positive, and we're not going to celebrate our wins, but we're going to look for ways to leverage our wins, okay? And it's not just telling everybody, oh, I closed the loan, give me congratulations, high five. It's where can I close another loan because of that? Where can I leverage this victory into more opportunities? That's going to be our key word, is this one activity, how it turned into 10, okay? So I hope I gave you guys a good outline. I hope I gave you guys a good overview. I kind of condensed it today because my team is not on the call. This is all just for outside people. After today, all of our calls will be interactive where you guys can ask questions. All of our calls will have my team on them. We'll talk back and forth. And whether you work for me or not, you'll be able to interact. You'll be able to learn. You'll literally see exactly what we're doing here to win. And we'll go from there. This was a short call just to give you guys the overview. Like I said, we did an in-person presentation for all of my team. And now I'm doing the webinar. From now on, all of our coaching will be on the webinar, and we will go from there. So, you know, I kept it a little short today. And look, some days may only be 40 minutes like this. Some days may be 60 minutes, but we're always going to provide value. So at the end of the day, you know, I hope you invite others to join. I've got a lot of negative feedback for wanting to do this for free. People think I'm doing it to recruit. The majority of you who are on there have no reason to work for me. You have your own brokerages. We already know each other. I'm not trying to recruit you guys, right? I think the industry lacks good coaching. It lacks good training. Nobody should work for a company and then have to go pay $1,000 a month for a coach to give them ideas. That's crap, right? We want to change the industry. We want to make sure that our industry is full of professionals. And if I'm already doing it for my team, there's no reason I can't share it with you. So if you have any feedback from me at any time and you want me to cover any specific things, if you like this, if you didn't like it, how we can make it better for you, if we can change the time, whatever you want to talk about, I'm always here to talk to you guys. I'll do one-on-one calls if you want to talk about your demographics and your market. But just know every week it's going to be building blocks and we're going to build on top of it. So if you're consistently here and consistently putting in the work behind what we're doing, you're going to start to see the results. All right, guys? So let's go out there and leverage our victories. Let's accelerate our careers and let's just keep kicking ass, right? Thank you all for joining. I'll see you soon.